Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we're talking to industry vet Dee Dee Murray, discussing how she created a role for herself early on with Organized Noise, joining the film industry with Murray Media Productions, and why volunteering is an important part of her success. Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting here with industry veteran Dee Dee Murray. How you feeling?
Hey, player. What's happening?
Come on, playa. Yes, it's Peaches.
Yeah, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
You're owner of Murray Media Productions. You have known to be in the industry for over 25 years, 25 plus years at this point.
And I'm only 26, so
yes,
don't
girl,
do the math, girl.
Looking fabulous. Looking fabulous.
Thank
you supported the careers of many, many artists and groups, but a lot of people know you for your work, obviously, with Organized Noise and the Dungeon Family.
Yeah.
Some might call you the queen, the first lady of Atlanta Southern hip-hop.
You can. I'll take that. I'll take that.
I guess I'm curious to know at what moment you realized you wanted to be in the music and the entertainment industry.
Oh, my gosh. I want to say when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I loved going to talent shows. I came from the era of the 80s where, we were still doing talent shows in school, and I loved coordinating them. I loved going to them. I loved discovering the new talent. My uncle, his name is Sparkell Anthony, and he was a legend indicator. And he had a group called Black Fire. They were a dance group, and they used to kill every talent show indicator. I mean, would slay them out. So I was kind of like their quote-unquote manager.
Okay,
when I was like 14,
early.
15 years old. And I would be at all their rehearsals and making sure that their little outfits were coordinated. And I let them know what talent shows they had coming up next and everything. So I knew early on that, I had a love and a passion for music. I can't hold a note in a cup.
Yeah, I was going to ask, why you never pursued
Because Dee Dee can't sing. Dee Dee cannot sing. I tried, but, I just felt like, if they put me behind a mic, the world would just be over. Like, nobody could handle it. So I just stayed quiet in the background and, did my little work and just found my niche. I had to really find my niche because, I knew I wasn't, really blessed with the talents of being able to hold a note in a cup, as I always say. But I could read, write, count. And
Great
for me, for me, I took that and applied it to what I loved. Mm-hmm. And that was the business of music, just really figuring out how this whole thing works, how do we make money in this, how do we monetize these talents, so at a very early age, that drew my interest. So I started working in high school at what was then Turtles Records and Tapes. I know I'm really dating myself. But, we had a really successful record chain called Turtles. Mm-hmm. And I worked there all throughout high school and college. And that helped me understand, how music trends were monetized, what people like. What consumers gravitated towards. One of the first albums that I discovered that had monumental success was that doggone Keith Sweat Make It Last Forever album. I can remember when that junk came out and we got it in the record store, popped it open, and we were like, Keith Sweat? Who is this with this sweater on?
Right.
We put it on. That thing stayed on for months. That was the album. So that's one of my vivid memories of working in the record store. And finding a gem, mm-hmm. And discovering that gem and putting it on and watch people being like, who is that? What is that?
I gotta
Can
get
I
that.
get that tape? Y'all got the 45? Because it was back then. We were still doing all of that. So that's how I discovered it. Yeah.
So you mentioned your uncle. Mm-hmm. Can you do a little bragging right now? I'm going to have you brag on yourself a little bit during this.
I hate this.
It's okay. Drop some names of people that we may have heard of that came from you all's family tree.
Oh, Lord. Well, I will start way back. My maiden name is Hibbler. My
Hibbler.
name is Delethean Hibbler.
Oh, wow.
I'm a proud Hibbler.
Yes.
And my uncle, my great uncle, is the legendary Al Hibbler. He's a blind jazz singer.
Wow.
Yeah, so I didn't really know until I got to college that, my name was legendary and that I was associated with a very legendary person. But that's where, it all started in the gene pool.
Right, right. You had it in you.
Yeah, but in terms of, I really hate the name drop. I'm not a name dropper at all.
I understand.
But some of my babies are Black Wolf and Black Dog, and if anybody knows who they are,
Okay.
they're the legendary Mighty Outkast.
Yes.
The
Yes.
Mighty O.
Yes.
I met those guys when I first started working with Organized Noise in 1992, 92 or 93.
Mm-hmm.
And they were amazing. They just when I first heard them rap, they would just, I want to say they rapped for like 30 minutes straight with no breath. Like, they were just passing back and forth like where's the hook?
Right.
When are these dudes gonna stop?
Right.
But they're absolutely amazing. They're my first loves, always, still today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Goody Mob, of course.
Yeah.
Cool Breeze Witch Doctor, Lil Will.
Yeah, yeah.
All of those. The Dungeon Family. That's where most people know me from, associate me with.
Right.
But prior to the Dungeon Family, I worked at Capitol Records,
Okay.
in which I was the assistant to the National Director of Promotions. And we were responsible for doing radio promotions for the artist on the label on a national scale for the whole country.
Oh, wow.
So we were promoting music for MC Hammer,
Right. I
The
saw
Whispers,
that. Mm-hmm.
Gap Band, Freddie Jackson. Funny story. Pause. Let's put a quarter in the meter and park it and talk about Freddie Jackson. So Freddie Jackson had the big hit "You Are My Lady," and I used to have to be his lady on the road and it was so funny. I love Freddie Jackson even to this day. So I would be his girlfriend, quote unquote girlfriend, and we would wear the same kind of colors. He's like, baby, we wearing lime green tonight. You got a lime green outfit? I'm like, yes, Uncle Freddie, I got a lime green outfit. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. We're just gonna walk in this club. I'm gonna dip you under the table and I'm gonna pretend to kiss you. And I'm like, in front of all these people. I said, okay, Uncle Freddie.
That is hilarious.
And that's how we would promote his record, yes.
Wow. So you were the lady.
I was the "You Are My Lady" in the South.
That is hilarious. Yeah, I was going to ask you how you were involved with all of those, supporting those careers of the MC Hammers. These are big groups and artists. The Whispers, Gap Band. I grew up, marching to those songs. So that's dope.
Yeah.
So Capitol Records.
Yeah, Capitol Records. Keith Fry was my music industry daddy. I was very lucky coming up in that I had protectors. Mm-hmm. Keith Fry at Capitol Records and Ray Boyd at V103.
Nice.
Those were my protectors, and they handed me off. I worked for Ray at V103 first. Ray got a job at WBLS in New York, and he couldn't take me with him. Right. I wanted to go, but he was like, no, baby, I can't go. Let me go check it out first, and, I'll let you see what it is. And he was like, I can't do it. They ain't got the money, but I got somebody that I want you to go see.
Right.
Keith Fry. He my best friend, and he's going to take care of you like I took care of you. Mm-hmm. And I went to Keith. He sent me to go see Keith, and I started working the very next day.
Wow.
Yeah, and I say that they're my protectors, and I had industry fathers that helped guide me because they didn't let anything happen to us. And they sat me and my counterpart, Shanti Das, who is very close, a very good friend of mine. We both kind of came up together. But they sat us down early and was like, what you're not going to do is be in these videos. What you're not going to do is be dating these artists. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be Bobby Brown's Tenderoni up on that stage. If I catch you up there, I'm going to fire you. And we were like, oh, shit. I can't be the Roni girl. So we got threatened early. We were told what and what not to do. We were told how guys were in this industry. And they guided us. Like from very early on in my career, I had strong male role models that showed me how to interact with males in this industry, how to conduct myself, how to increase my market value. Mm-hmm. how to be distinguished when you walk in a room and what you want to be known for
Right.
when you walk in that room.
Absolutely.
Not to go to every party. You don't have to go to every one,
Right,
you know.
right.
So be selective about where you are and what you do and who you hang around. Because when you walk in the room, they're going to be like, oh, Dee Dee's here.
Right, right.
She ain't at everything. This must be the right thing.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
Was taught that very early on, how not to water myself down, how not to play myself. You know, and how to be respected as a woman in this industry, and I thank them for that.
Absolutely.
I really, really appreciate them for that.
Speaking of being a woman, you know, this is a question I like to ask women when I do have the opportunity, because it's far and few in between that I do speak with women who have as much success as you, or like you said, your counterpart Shanti does. Being a woman, were there any particular challenges that you necessarily faced or that you could remember? You know, because sometimes I hear it's not really that many. You were blessed to have people in your life that were there to guide you.
Yeah.
So can you remember any challenges you may have faced as a woman?
Oh, yeah. There were lots of them. I mean, a lot of them. The main challenge is equality in pay and earnings, and that, you know, a lot of times coming up in this industry, you know, I got the short end of the stick because I wanted the opportunity.
Right.
You know, I wasn't necessarily a money chaser, but I'm more of a opportunity. I want to say chaser, but I look for the right opportunity to match myself with.
Right.
You know, and sometimes the pay may not. You know, a lot of us will be like, I ain't doing that, I ain't paying that. You know, but for me, if it's the right situation that I feel like would, you know, be great on my resume or would just align me with the right people to take me to the next level in my career, I would do that. You know, I would do it. Money never would stop me from doing anything, or the lack thereof.
Right.
But then, you know, you get to situations where, you know, I can remember running Organized Noise and doing everything and being there, and them bringing in men to oversee what we were doing, and they were making like 10 times more than me, and I would see them come and go, rip these cats off left and right, and I was still there left to pick the pieces up. And part of it was I married one of those cats. Like I married Ray Murray from Organized Noise, which, you know, a lot of people would think, you know, okay, so she married one of them cats. Like, well, you know, that happened. It did. You know, I wasn't out there hoeing or nothing like that. You know, I happened to realize and find love. And even that was challenged because once he and I started dating, then of course other guys would be like, okay, so you know, you getting Ray some, you gonna give me some too? And I'm like, if you don't get the fuck up out my face.
Listen, I hear that.
So I've had to do that several times.
Yeah.
To really, you know, kind of just plant my feet and let people know what my position was. Like, I'm not here to do that. Like, I'm here to get business done. And yeah, I found my husband in the process, but that's my husband.
Right.
You know, that's the only dude I'm checking for around here. You know, everything else is business. And we found, you know, we were great business partners. We were great, you know, in that arena. I was able to help them, you know, maintain their business and do what they do best, and help collect the money along the way and make sure all the T's were dotted and the I's were crossed, you know. And I always say that. I do it on purpose. And was able to, you know, build a family in the process. You know, so for me, I was blessed. I was lucky. You know, I was very blessed to be able to do that successfully. And, you know, all things end. We're not together anymore now, but we're still very good friends. We're raising a family together, a very beautiful blended family, and we love that. And we're still, you know, I don't actually work with them on a daily basis anymore, but I'm always still involved. Like, people are always still calling me, like, what's Pat and Ray doing? Like,
right. My question, before we kind of get into family stuff, because I know that that's also another thing that I'm interested in knowing how you balance, but what were the advantages of being a woman? Because I know there's certain business moves that you were able to make as a woman that men may not be able to make.
Well, I mean, I think grace, you know, having a spirit of grace and femininity, and compassion and humanity and that nurturing spirit sometimes where things or situations may go awry and people may sometimes bicker and argue. I've always been able to successfully play the role as a peacemaker and bring people together and have people sit down and talk and work out issues and, find a successful way for us to be able to work out and do business and make whatever goal that we have reached to, to be able to realize that goal. So, for me, it's I think compassion and kindness goes a long way. And that is a quality that we as women have. For me, just making sure that my name, is has value and people recognize me for what I do, and that's good business.
Right.
For me, that is more important than having any dollar amount. Just making sure that you have a good name, a good reputation, and that you're known for what you do. Right. And that's handle business. And as a woman, being able to be known for that and to be able to carry that torch, I think that's a special gift that we as women have, that in a duality, we can live in our femininity and still, conduct business and be bosses.
Tell them, boss babes.
Yeah, boss babes on deck. Okay.
So let's just talk about specifically what I'm sure a lot of listeners would love to know is most people equate much of your early success with the Dungeon Family, Organized Noise. You were managing that entire conglomerate, right?
Yes.
And you helped develop the Dungeon Family and a lot of their earlier acts. So my question is, one, how did you get your involvement with them? Like, how did you make a role? You kind of carved a space for yourself, a lane to do this administrative things, to what did you say? Dotting the T's and crossing the I's.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about the earlier part of just, solidifying your role and your place in that conglomerate?
Yeah, well, I have to thank Ian Burke, first of all, for introducing me to Organized Noise, because he's a person that was like, hey, I know somebody that I need to introduce y'all to because she can handle business. And that's how we started working at Capitol Records. MC Hammerhead came out with this Pumps and a Bump record where he was like at a pool with some Speedos on, and it was like a crazy record, and they had spent all this money. And one day they came to work and was like, okay, so we're closing the black music division of Capitol Records.
Oh, wow.
You guys are over. Just like that. Right. One day. And we were like, okay, well, shoot, what are we going to do now? Right. So none of us had jobs. They closed our department. And, I was like, okay, so what's next? And Ian had introduced me to Rico Patton Ray, and he was like, I want you to meet these guys. They had just done a song on the CB4 soundtrack. They had one placement. They were signed to Savvy Records, and were working on a Parental Advisory album, which was the group that KP was in, KP, Mello, and Reese. Mm-hmm. So started working, going to the dungeon every day. I had this big old IBM laptop, probably one of the first laptops ever. And would go over there every day and just pretend like it was my job. Like I would just be over there every day typing stuff and, waiting on them to tell me what to do and how I could assist them. And I'd set up interviews, and Rico had a rabbit. Maybe 4 people could fit in the car. So I had a car, so we would all get in the car, smash in, and go do interviews, go do whatever it is we were attempting to do. So I just came in and sat down and started working. And while they were making records, I would call to be in my office and set up, like they had nothing. Like they didn't have any ASCAP set up, no BMI set up. I set up all of that from the onset for all of those guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was a lot to do. I just had to sit down and do it.
And your previous, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Your previous work with Capitol Records, is that how you knew, like what to do? Because,
Well, no.
No?
No, because that was a whole nother, I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out along the way.
Right.
Had to read, had to figure it out. There was no guidebook. There was nothing. So as issues came up, we just had to figure out how to solve them. And that's where that reading, writing, and counting came into play. Right. Because, they had samples that needed to be cleared. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew how to do that, so we had to figure it out.
Right.
Lyrics had to be typed up. I could type. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Gathering credits for the records, scheduling photo shoots, scheduling videographers to come, all of that type of stuff. Graphic artists we needed, that's where Mr. Soul came into play with us. So, it was just the right moment, for us all to come together. It was like that Big Bang moment. The right players were there at the right time, and we just made it happen. My friend Mia Red, she was their manager at the time, and she would just do all of the other things that I couldn't really do because I had my own set of things that I had to do. So we all divided up the responsibilities, made it happen. I was even braiding hair, like on the first album cover, the very first Outkast album cover. Dre has this crooked braid hairdo. I did it. The part was supposed to be down the middle, but he has this crawly scalp.
I know exactly what it was. I thought it was the look. I thought it was like, messy hair. He just wasn't,
It was supposed to be centered down the part, but it came out kind of to the side, and
we made it work.
We made it work.
So speaking of that first album, High Players, it's Peaches.
Yeah, that is me.
It's Peaches. Talk about, the rollout for that album, and just also prior to dropping that first Outkast album, what the Atlanta music scene was like. Because I don't know Atlanta. I'm young, but I don't know Atlanta music before Outkast, really.
Atlanta music before Outkast was, like it was like the Wild Wild West kind of. We had Kilo Ali out there doing, White Girl and Nasty Dancer and all of that type of stuff. So we had Booty Shake.
Yeah.
We had the ATL Hard Boys and the Chain Gang, and they were kind of like our quote unquote gangster rappers at the time. But I can remember vividly the music that influenced us, what we would watch on TV, and that was the Ghetto Boys. Dun, 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 Mind Playing Tricks on Me. Tribe Called Quest. Those were some of the records that we would listen to and be like, man, we're going to do videos like those, And so for us, it was, just, we knew that there was something missing in the South. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know, So we just did what we did. We were who we were, and they put that on tape. We had to represent Atlanta. So when that whole thing came together, because to me, that Southern Playalistic album, to me, is more like a movie.
Yeah.
It plays like a movie from beginning to end. And that's how it felt making that record. It was just like a movie. I mean, when we sat there and listened to that final playback from beginning to end, and I kind of touched on it in the documentary, we were all speechless.
Yeah.
Nobody could talk. Nobody could say anything because we were like, what the fuck did we just do? Like, oh my God, this is good.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like this before. I know it was the Chronic album was getting ready to come out. Snoop Dogg had a bootleg cassette for his album that was coming out, Doggy Style, and we used to listen to them records. So those were the things that really kind of shaped what we were doing.
Right.
Even like Eazy-E and NWA and stuff that they were doing, like those were the records that were out at the time. So, for us to do the Southern Playalistic record and it not be like any of those, we were like, oh.
Let me ask you this. When Dre said the South got something to say, that was like during the time, when a lot was going on with hip hop from the East Coast, West Coast. Yeah, what was your take on, y'all coming in as these new
Oh, it
music.
was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was terrifying because we were like, first, is anybody going to take this seriously?
Right.
As seriously as we take it?
Right.
Because we was dead ass serious about what we were doing. This was our life. Yeah. This was our world. I mean, and Curtis can attest for that. Like, this was really who we were.
Right.
So for Dre to take that stance and say, the South got something to say. We know that y'all beefing on the East Coast and the West Coast. We're down here in the South, and we're not a part of this, but we have a voice,
right?
And it needs to be heard. We're here. Hip hop is real for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, while y'all are doing all of this and that over here, trying to kill each other, we're going to be down here making some music.
Right. Listen.
We're going to move our feet.
So Curtis always tells a story about how Outkast started recording here at Patchwerk, and the fact that they were our very first clients ever. Do you remember how that happened?
Heck yeah. Like it was yesterday in the purple and black building in the little house up the street. Yes. I can remember us trying to figure out where we could spend a whole bunch of time recording records. We needed a home.
Yeah.
We needed some place where these guys could come, it'd be private, they could really get some work done, be comfortable. And Patchwerk was there. Patchwerk was new. It hadn't really opened yet. Still working through a few little things, in terms of, operations, that I was able to come in and say, okay, we need track sheets. We need this. We need blah, 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 blah. Y'all got this. And as we figured out what we needed to make these guys comfortable, it all came together. I mean, it was seamless. It was, there were a few challenges,
Yeah.
but we worked them all out.
Yeah.
And we got the job done, and we found a home.
How does it feel to look at, where where Patchwerk has come?
Man, it's one of the most proudest things for me to always walk through this door every time and just look at how it's grown from the little purple and black house down the street. I have a sense of pride being here because I know, at the end of the day, I had something to do with this.
Right. I was going to ask you, are you aware that you kind of helped legitimize Patchwerk Recording Studios?
Well, I wouldn't say legitimize it. I just helped.
So humble.
Patchwerk is what it is. It's a staple in the Atlanta music community. And, I'm grateful to have been a part of it from the very beginning. And it's all God's timing. It's all God, we were there. It was us. We were the chosen ones to say, okay, we're going to partner with you guys. We're going to make this happen. We're going to figure it out. There was times when we owed Patchwerk a whole lot of money, but we got it paid.
Yeah.
Worked out situations and kept on going. And this is family. This is home. I know that I could come here anytime. No, I don't, but I know I can.
Right. So it seems like you're the person. We talked about how you weren't really interested in being the artist, the actual creative person necessarily. It seems like you help the creatives handle business, specifically sort things out that most artists probably don't want to do or be unmotivated to take care of. Tell me about your company. Let me not mess this up. Murray Media Productions. Partners.
Murray Media Production Partners. It's morphed into several different things. It started, and I still have Murray Media Music, which is not listed, but Murray Media Music is a company that does just that. I'll handle the business so that you can be creative. All of the things that you're bogged down with in terms of, synchronization license and, this contract and that and union papers, I know that stuff. I'll handle that for you. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We'll get all your songwriters signed up. We'll get all your songwriter your split sheets done.
Right.
Don't worry about that. I'll handle it.
That's what's up.
Yeah, and then my company, Murray Media Production Partners, which I started last year, is a leap into just really transforming where our industry is going. I had to create an entity that would work with my partners in the film industry as well. So I'm working now as the film industry is booming in Atlanta, branching out to do some things in that industry as well. So music supervision, clearances for movies, movie permits, film permits, shutting down streets, stuff like that. We're starting to branch out into those areas. And
right. I was going to ask, with Atlanta being the next hub for the film and entertainment or film and TV industries, and it already being kind of this epicenter for music, how do you see the film and music industry connecting or fusing in the near future?
Well, I know for us in Atlanta, it's that now that we have the music tax credit that is in place, we'll see a big growth in the music industry as we saw in the film industry when it started in like 2006, 2007. It's going to take some years to grow the music industry to match where we are in the film industry. But now that you can get a tax credit for productions, it's really going to bring a boost to this market. But where the music and the film industry will come together in the future, you'll see more people here doing post production, doing trailer work, doing a lot of the music elements that are contained in films right here in the city. Before, they'd only shoot the movies here and then go back to California and do the post work, do all the ADR, do all the trailer work. But now, that stuff is going to start happening here as the tax credits and the incentives become more realized to the industry. We'll see that growth. Wow. And I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to it.
You're a few steps ahead. A few steps ahead. Like, let me get into this. Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah.
That's what's up. And you've nourished many relationships. I think that's like a big thing for your story that I've realized or I discovered over the years, from Dungeon Family to even working with T.I. Hustle Gang, and you got experience doing a lot of different things. Why do you think fostering those relationships has, or within the entertainment industry, has been significant to your success, even moving into film and everything else?
Because relationships have carried me. I mean, I'll tell anybody this. Jobs that I interview for, I've never gotten one job that I've interviewed for. My career has been a series of phone calls. Hey, Dee Dee, what you doing? Doing this, that, and well, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, we can work it out. I can see how we can fit it in. So again, it's the opportunities. Opportunities come before me, and I weigh them to see whether or not they're beneficial. And it doesn't have anything to do with money. It's all about, is this the right opportunity for me personally? Can I benefit the person that I will be working with and partnering with? And how can we make things better? Like, whatever it is that we're doing, whether it be making music, whether it be, community involvement, like, what can we do to make somebody else's life better?
Right.
So that's my whole, that's where I am now. Like, that's where, my whole career, has really been built on. Is not really what I can do for me, but, just how we together can make our lives better collectively. So, community work, I love it. Working with kids, helping kids realize their dreams, working with these with nonprofits, especially celebrity-based nonprofits, to help them determine what their programming is, determining what their community impact can be. It's been very rewarding for me, and I love that, and I hope that I can be able to do more of that work in the future.
Right. I was going to say, today you've acted as, obviously, the the manager for the Dungeon Family and Organized Noise, but you general manager of Purple Ribbon Records, which is Big Boys, the executive director for T.I.'s nonprofit, the King Foundation, and director of A&R, admin for, you mentioned Pebbles label, Savvy Records.
Yeah, we hadn't even talked about Mama
I know,
Pebbles.
we gotta talk about
lady.
What skills do most of those roles require you to have? What are some things that you feel like, this is why you're the woman for the job, this is why people keep calling you back?
Well, I mean, number one, it's dependability. I always get this thing, I need somebody around me I can trust.
Yeah.
When and there's things that I don't really mention that I've done, like when Dre's mom passed away. Unfortunately, we love Ma Benjamin, rest in peace.
I think people know you for getting the job done, and that's why I wanted to ask you too, like, how important, I know relationships are important, but how important is building a great reputation in this industry? Describe a moment maybe where your reputation or your relationships have gotten you to that next level.
Yeah, market value. I just always keep going back to market value, your own personal market value. Keith Fry always taught me, like, when you do something for somebody, don't ever ask for anything in return, because that's only going to increase your market value. And when it's whatever you do for somebody else, trust me, it's always going to come back to benefit you in some kind of way. And that shouldn't be your reason for doing it, but always keep an open heart and an open mind for somebody else.
Right.
Because that's going to bring that back to you.
Yeah.
And I learned that early on. So even like, with the stuff we were doing with Patchwerk, and like that, for me, that was, it wasn't to really get anything in return or to be like, oh, I'm the first person, my group gonna be the first ones, and all of that. No, it was to help my brothers. They were starting out, and they asked for help. They needed guidance, and we were able to provide that. And providing that, made the other situations happen, and recording and being the first client of Patchwerk,
Right.
that just happened as a byproduct of wanting to help somebody else succeed.
Right.
So I that's how I live my life. That's how I continue going. That's why I can say that I've been in this music industry for over 25 years. And that's been my mainstay. Just always making sure that I increase my market value, having a good reputation, making sure that your name speaks for itself. A lot of people don't know what I look like. A lot of people have never seen me in person.
Yeah.
But if you say Dee Dee Murray, they're going, oh, I know her.
Right, right.
I talk to her. And I meet all the people all the time. It's like, you don't know me, but I talk to you on the phone for years, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to get a hug. Like, oh my gosh, you're Dee Dee. You're the person I talked to for years. And it's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of just staying behind the scenes and making it happen.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You attended Savannah State.
Yes.
Proud HBCU alum.
Yeah.
Why do you think education was a significant part of your journey?
Oh, education was significant in my journey because it helped me further define my path. When I went to college in 1983 and graduated in 1987, we had no music business programs. We had none of the educational support systems that are in place now.
Right.
So we had to carve our path. So when I went to college, I first place I went was to the radio station, college radio station, and was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. Where can I fit in?
Right.
And as a sophomore, I started my own radio show, which led us to get an internship at the commercial radio station E93. So it helped me develop my work ethic. It helped me to carve my path. It helped me align my interest with real professionals that were out here in the industry doing, because it was at E93 that I saw the record industry people come in with the artists. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? What's going on? Like, how they get to go to lunch? Who pays for this credit card that all these people whipping out? Because back then it was going down. Like lunch, dinner, this, that, retail parties. I'm like, who's setting all this up? Like, whose responsibility?
I need to find out who they are.
I need to find out who this person is. And that's how, I met this man named Charles Gear. Charles Gear worked at Warner Brothers. He was the rep. He was coming in with Guy and all these, no, not Guy, but Prince and all of them cats. He would have them. And then there was Martha Fry, who was married to Keith Fry. She was the woman. She always had a Gucci purse, all coming in with Bobby Brown and Guy. And I'm like, okay. So you would see these people, and they would take you out to lunch. They would make sure that you had backstage passes to the concert. And I'm just a little intern at the radio station, splicing tape, because that was when we were literally splicing tape, putting it back together with the tape on the back, and then
I'm already knowing.
It was crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot, but that's what we were doing. We didn't have all this fancy electronic stuff back then. Yeah, so, but that's where I realized who I wanted to be and what path I wanted to take in this industry by seeing those people, meeting those people, having those people, really just kind of show me what they do. And that's where those stars came from. That's where those ideas came from. That's where I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to Atlanta. I'm going to get this job at V103.
Say that.
I'm going to, from V103, I went to Capitol Records, and from Capitol Records, I went to Organized Noise, and from Organized Noise, duality with Savvy Records, and Pebbles taught me how to make records. And that's the one thing that I can say that I gained from her is how to make a record. We were playing, we were trying to figure it out, but working with her actually taught me the theory behind sequencing, tracking, mixing, vocals, just the whole gamut, union and, because we were working out of La Coco, the Reed Mansion.
Right.
And when I got that job and was invited to come work at the personal studio of L.A. Reid and Pebbles Reid, I was like, oh, shit, I have made it now. But, like going in and seeing them record, like, there would always be fruit. In the studio, there'd always be hot tea. There would always be candles. The lights would always be perfect.
Ambiance.
So I learned all of that, like how to set the mood, how to make the studio comfortable, how to spark creativity. What do you do to make people happy when they're in a situation where they have to create? Food, music, smells, just things like. So I learned all of that at a level of excellence because the Reeds did everything right, in terms of music and production. I was brought in on a very high level to learn how to make these records with John Fry and his brother. It was the best learning experience that I can get. And I can remember praying to God and be like, like when I was at Capitol Records and we were promoting the records, I'm like, Lord, I want to learn how to make records. And the department got closed and I got put right into a situation
where you needed to be,
where I wanted to make records. I wasn't making no money, but I was making records.
Right. He gave you what you asked for.
Yeah, gave me what I asked for. I didn't ask for money. I asked to learn how to make records. And that's exactly what I got. And that's how it's been all the way. I can remember when people started coming around here and doing films and stuff, and I was like, Lord, I want to know what them little yellow signs mean. I want to know, and he put me in a situation where I was able to learn, like, how to shut down streets, how to apply for film permits, how the business of filming gets done from a location standpoint. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm only a year into this.
Wow.
About a year and some months, but I'm learning, and I love it.
That's what's up.
So
I'm happy to hear that. I also know that you served on several boards in and out of the music and entertainment industry, and you received many accolades for that work and for your work in general. Why do you value that volunteer work? You spoke about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Even as a successful and accomplished businesswoman, you still value that volunteer work and serving on these boards. You talk about like it not being about the money, but just because you wanted to do it.
Yeah. I find there's high value in giving back. There's high value in your time. Our time, we can't give that back, but what we can give in terms of our time cannot be monetized, especially if you're giving sincerely and you really want to see people succeed and grow. So for me, volunteering, being a part of boards, that's my responsibility, because I know that there's others coming behind me that look at my path and want to know, okay, Dee Dee, how she do this? How she do that? Or what can I do? Okay, so when I was in college, we didn't have music programs, but when I was invited to serve on the board of the UGA's music program, certificate program from the onset, I was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, because I didn't have this, but there's another young person that needs this, so it was my responsibility, as I was invited again to be a part of this inaugural program and a part of this inaugural board to develop the UGA Music Business Certificate Program. I knew how important that was. I knew that I was supposed to be in that room with all of those people, that were way smarter than me, that had way more education than me, but valued my opinion and how to set this up and what do we need to teach these kids and how do we need to teach it? Who do we bring in? So you know, that's part of my responsibility. Like, that's on me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I know that, you know, my involvement made that happen. And I'm proud of that because it's
Yeah.
something that can never be undone. My Grammy work, you know, very proud of that work because we made changes and the industry's always changing.
Right.
You know, but to know that I was a part of the Grammy building that they're working out of right now, purchasing that, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
negotiating that,
Yeah.
you know, watching the whole sale of we've made a cash sale for that building,
Wow.
liquidated assets to make things happen and to be in that room, to see business and participate and make decisions on business being conducted on a level that high. You know, like, that's invaluable. Like,
Right.
you know, yeah, I didn't get paid in money, but I got paid in knowledge.
Right.
So for me, you know, when opportunities come to me like that, you know, I find that just as valuable as any check I could receive.
Absolutely.
Because it's knowledge. You can't
buy that.
You can spend the money, but you can't take away your knowledge.
That's real. That's real. Wow. I don't know if I have anything else. You got me lost for words. No, you are very, very much so insightful. I wanted to also ask, because you mentioned off the record, you have children, your daughter kind of following along in your footsteps with the music business.
I created a monster.
Uh-oh.
Malia the monster.
Malia the monster. So what's she doing? What's she up to?
Goodness. Well, right now I hadn't seen the child since before Mother's Day because she's been in L.A.
Oh, really? Living it up?
Yeah, living it up. BET weekend, staying at Rick Rubin house, doing all
wow.
kind of craziness. But she owns a company called Malia Shut Up, and she is a social media manager. So she runs social media for Love Renaissance and its roster of artists, specifically Big Baby Drum and Black. So all of the stuff that you see social media wise for Big Baby Drum and Black is all Malia, including the Instagram of the famous Isn't It So Cute. I don't know if anybody knows who Isn't It is, but y'all need to follow Isn't It, IDNIT, So Cute on Instagram. That is Big Baby Drum's dog.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my
So
God.
cute.
The dog is now more famous than the
drum.
dog on Big Baby Drum.
Yes. That's awesome. She's basically doing it and doing you in the 2017 way.
Yeah, she's doing Dee Dee digitally. And I'm very proud of her. My daughter, she's 26. She just turned 26. I have a 20-year-old daughter, Sine. She's in college at Georgia State. She's taken up filmmaking and photography.
Dope.
And won the Golden Clapper Award for the best use of music in a video 2 years ago when she did her very first production with an independent video with some kids, some
Congrats
friends.
to her.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So all your hard work is slowly
It's
paying
starting to pay off. I have a son who's 17. He loves cars, and I've realized from him that he has an ear. Like, he told me about Playboy Cardi before he got big. He was like, "Mama, you got to listen to Playboy Cardi." And I'm like, who? He likes, and he keeps me relevant.
Yeah.
Like Lil Ugly God, I think that's his name.
Ugly God.
And then I help him too. Like Denzel Curry is his favorite rapper. I happen to be Denzel Curry's stepmama. Like, he calls me his industry mama. So whenever Denzel Curry comes into town, he comes to see us. He talks to my son. He counsels him. So Enum's got a good life. He's friends with his favorite rapper right now.
That's dope. That's what's up. Denzel Curry's not a bad rapper to have as your favorite either.
And he goes to his shows. He goes backstage. They hang out, you know.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So, and then I have a 13-year-old daughter, Hadassah, who is a dance phenom. She likes to dance. She told me that she wants to be dancing in videos. I'm like, as long as you're doing it the right way, girl. And getting his paper.
Listen, I feel you.
Yeah, but we were watching the BET Awards and just the other night, and she was looking at the professional dancers that were dancing behind Chris Brown, and she was like, "Mama, that's what I want to do right there. I want to do that. I want to get those checks." And I'm like, okay. Well, you're on your way, because she's done work at Alvin Ailey. She's been in some very good dance programs. So we're going to realize her situation and see where she wants to go with it.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Happy to hear that your family is all kind of carving out their own path the way you
I
did.
know, because they got to pay mommy tax. I told
That's
them
what
a
my mom
long
says.
time ago that once y'all get y'all little jobs, mama is not working.
Listen.
If I can get $1,000 a month from all four of y'all, I'll be straight. So that's what I'm working towards.
Okay.
And I'll be good.
All right.
Come do some lunch.
Listen. Look, you just call me whenever you get that check. Okay? So, what else can we expect from you in terms of your production company? What else are you working on? We want to know how we can, be involved and stay tuned.
Well, my baby's out of South DeKalb County, Hero the band. I don't know if the guys know about them.
Yeah.
They're going to be opening up for Bobby Brown at Centennial Park.
Dope.
They have a mansion party tonight at a secret location.
Yeah, I saw that.
If you guys go and RSVP, they'll send you an address and you can come hang out with us tonight.
Nice. I asked you about your real kids, but I guess I'm curious to know. You said Denzel Curry calls you, his industry mom, but you've had some children that you've raised in the industry, your industry kids coming up.
So I briefly talked about Shanti Das. She was my first industry baby, and she's done great things. All you got to do is Google her. Shantidas.
Yes.
Okay.
Big player.
Doing the big things, and we have a very good relationship. We're still doing work together. KP, I call him Ham Sandwich.
Ham Sandwich.
Only he and I know what that means. But he's another one of my babies that is doing great right now. I watched him go from a DJ to a music executive, like at a blink of an eye. And a great father and a great, just a great guy altogether. Great humanitarian, great DJ out there doing his thing. Let's see who are some of my other ones. Bernard Parks, who was managing Goody Mob. I can remember the first day Bernard came into my office and, Cujo was like, yeah, this is my homeboy. He going to be managing us. And Bernard was like, look, I come from the dry cleaning business. So what is this? And I helped him get his reins together. Gosh, man. There's been so many, but those are the main ones. Am I Orlando McGee? Yeah. Oh my gosh, he was my intern.
Really?
He was my special baby. Oh, was he my special baby? I had to do a lot of work with Orlando, but now he manages Organized Noise. Yes. So he went from interning to now being the big boss over there. So I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, we sat down with him on the podcast as well.
Yeah. Love my Orlando. Like he's
good
doing
people.
Very, very well.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, Jana Hicks, that's another one doing very well. So we're a tight knit community in this music industry here in Atlanta, in Metro Atlanta. We're all intertwined in some way or another. And although it looks massive to an outsider looking in, it's really small. It's really tight-knit here.
They say it's a small world in Atlanta anyway.
Oh, it is.
It's super small. Everybody knows somebody, right?
It is. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have that God put me in a situation at the right place at the right time to do some really good things and make a name for myself and, and for my kids, and to have left a legacy that, I'm very proud of today, and to still have kids now that are coming up in this industry like Rory. Who he texted me the other day. He was like, I'm distraught. I need to come see you. Like, okay, just come. So I get those types of calls, and, and I don't really put it out there, but I really like just being the quote unquote music industry mom. Yeah. And that's the place I'm claiming that. Yeah. Our mama. Yeah. I got my babies, and I'm very proud. That's very, awesome. Very, very proud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you've definitely carved your path and made a name for yourself, Miss Dee Dee Murray.
Thank you.
Mama Dee Dee Murray, industry vet. And it's awesome to see, or to hear your story and that you're sharing it with us. where can they, I guess, find you if you're on social media, if you're active there, as well as your company if you have a social media?
Yeah. I'm Peaches the Queen on Instagram and Twitter. That's where you can find me, Peaches the Queen. And that's pretty much it. I don't have a website for my business. I've never had a website for my business. I don't want one for some reason. I kind of like being low-key undercover.
You can still get in business. That's all that matters.
Still getting business.
I got to ask you, though, because I didn't ask this. Where do peaches come from?
You know.
I mean, I know you're Georgia peach. I wore my peach socks for you, actually.
Thank you, baby. Peaches I don't even know where Peaches came from, honestly. Like, I don't know. That is like, such Peaches, a good question. Like,
where did that come from? Because your name, you already have a nickname from your name, Dee Dee.
Dee Dee, yeah.
So then I was like, okay.
Peaches is a persona. Like, Peaches is a character from the Outkast album. Like, you know, and it all was, just all Georgia. You know, we had Captain Cracker, who was the airplane pilot. And, so Peaches started out as just a character with a symbolic name. And I was just that voice at the time. I was in the studio. It was the right place, the right time, and I just happened to be the voice of Peaches.
Yeah.
And it just became a persona.
Yeah.
So it may have started out by accident, and hey, play as this Peaches.
Yes. Well, you guys make sure y'all follow Tuned In if you ever need any of her services. She's here under the radar.
Yeah. Flying low, players. Flying low.
I love it. Thank you so much for talking to me and being a part of the podcast. As always, y'all can find me on social media at Sammy Approved. And thank you for tuning in to the I Do Music Podcast.
Hey.
Sonically superior.